to sort of practically put some legs on this. So first, an image. For thousands of years, human beings have built temples. Mosques, tabernacles, sheds, teepees, temples, spaces, sacred spaces. And the reason why they have done that is out of an intuitive awareness that all things are in some way connected to all other things and that things don't exist in isolation. What reductionist materialism says to you essentially is the meaning that you have, you just made that up. It just exists in isolation. What the great traditions have said for thousands of years is that, in the Jewish tradition, the Lord is one. That experience of joy you had is some sort of echo of a larger sound. This makes sense. Your story is part of a larger story. Your students, many of them, have been marinated in a world that at a very subtle level taught them nothing is actually ultimately related to everything else. But for thousands of years, human beings have had this intuitive awareness that there is a oneness to things. And so in building a temple, the power of building a temple is it helps people conceive of that which is holy and sacred. So you build a temple, you have a religious gathering, you have a faith community that has a physical space where it meets as a way of helping people conceive of that which is sacred and holy, that which is connected to the larger thing. Now, this is absolutely important, but it helps people understand the idea of something that is holy and sacred and belonging to something bigger than itself. But the problem, if the temple stays up, is what can begin to happen in people's minds is they begin to believe that some space is sacred and holy and other space isn't. So you have to build a temple in order to understand this, but then you got to tear that mother down. Does that make sense? So what you see with Jesus is Jesus say, no, you don't understand. The divine isn't confined to a box all the way back to the ark. This is the fundamental tension all the way through the scriptures, which is the divine confined to space, time, a box, or a statue? Is the holy and sacred, which is why Moses is told by the divine has no boundaries or edges. Brand new idea in human history. That which cannot be confined in actual space and time. So what you find right away are things like the psalmist saying, the earth, Psalm 24, is the Lord's and everything in it. What's the psalmist saying? Come on now. What the psalmist is saying is the whole thing is a temple. The whole thing is a temple. Your job is to teach your kids that the whole thing is a temple. The physics lab, the coding center, the coding nerds. There, I got it, coding nerds. The whole thing is a temple. Because a lot of people, when they get a paycheck from the temple, get confused and think their job is to keep the temple propped up. I don't know, is that Christian music? Oh, does it suck? Probably. You see what that is? Does it exist in the temple? Well, wait. Whole thing is a temple. The whole thing is a temple. And if you're a Christian, the Christian tradition takes this way farther. Because what is Eucharist? This bread and wine is holy because all bread and wine is holy. We do not come in out of the big bad world to meet with God. We gather to take the bread and wine to remind us that the Christ is in the common and the divine is in all of life. You're not trying to teach your kids to come to a place where they meet God. You're trying to create a space where their eyes are opened and their senses are heightened to the divine, sacred, holy nature of all of life. You're a scientist, you want to study history, you want to study biology, you want to code computers, you want to be a public school teacher, you want to be an artist, you want to start businesses and make lots of money. Awesome, the whole thing is a temple. Go. Go, go, go. Enjoy it. This is your sacred gift to the world. That kid needs to know from day one there is no division here, because the division has killed everybody and it doesn't even exist. And now you have quantum physicists saying, actually everything's made of atoms and atoms are made of particles and particles are relationships of energy. Time magazine, Jeffrey Kruger, 3 years ago, the Higgs boson discovery is spiritual. Actually, by the way, here's how I picture it. For a generation, people have understood this weird thing that somehow science and faith aren't the dance partners they've always been. And what they've pictured almost is like science going this way and faith going this way. But if you and I face each other and then we turn and walk away from each other because we aren't together, and we walk long enough, we will go around the world and we will walk into each other. So I think what's actually happening right now is they've been pushed so far apart that they just did that, and they just kept going, and they walked around the earth, and now they're walking up to each other again. And that's what's happening. That's what's happening. So anybody who's like, oh, well, how can you be faith and science? How out of the game are you that you're actually living with those old nasty categories? Are you kidding me? Come on, come on, come on. The whole thing's a temple. The whole thing's a temple. The whole thing's whatever they discover next, awesome. The greatest theologians and the greatest scientists are all saying the exact same thing, which is, and I'm going to get technical here, whoa. Literally, Lisa Randall knocking on heaven's door, her new book about dinosaurs and physics, and like considered by many like one of the greatest living scientists. I saw her there tonight in Santa Monica, and literally half the questions, she had these brilliant answers about gravitational force and quantum physics, and then she would say, at some point it got to be so beautiful because it was almost like a liturgy. She would give this technical, brilliant answer, and then she would say, beyond that, we don't really know. It was so beautiful. It was so fantastic. It was so like, yes, all of it. The whole thing is a temple. What do you? And then people will use this phrase, which I love. I don't know. I'm just into God's truth. What the? Like there's some other kind? See, these categories are so ridiculous. True, period. Is it true? Fantastic. Which leads from an image to a truth. In the first century Corinthian church, you have this fascinating thing, and hang with me here, this will be a little weird, but just hang with me and try to imagine. There were different Christian leaders, and people followed the different leaders and didn't follow the others, and there were like rivalries between the different groups of followers. I know. Makes you believe in original sin, you know what I'm saying? Or, as my most influential preaching mentor, Ezzy Izzard, says, original sin, like, I poked my eye out with a badger. Oh, good, that's original. Now, what's fascinating is the Apostle Paul charges into the situation with a letter, like you do. And he's like, basically, you knuckleheads, original Greek. Some of you say you follow Peter. Some of you say you follow Paul. Some of you say you follow Paul. What? Basically, he says to them, if it's true, it's yours. So he sort of confronts this weird sort of rivalry they have with, wait, why wouldn't you open yourself up to the truth from whoever it comes? Fair game, well played. But then he continues. It's a run-on sentence, not his first. He does not stop there, though. Whether it's of Peter, Apollos, Cephas, or the world, or life, or death. What does he say? Or the present, or the future. So he starts with the scope of a few rivalries among teachers. But then just for fun, because you know he's just going to apple rainbow death wheel them. You know what I mean? Like this is going to make your frame freeze up. Oh, all things are yours. If Paul says it, it's yours, and it's beautiful. If Apollo says it, it's yours. Oh, and if Peter says it, it's yours. Okay, got it. Oh, and the world, which I think is a slightly more expansive category. Would you agree? There's a little leap between the third and the fourth thing in his list. Would you agree? It's like Paul, Apollo, Cephas. Oh, the world. And then if you're like, oh, okay, the world, got it, fairly wider category. Oh, life, bit wider. Death, pretty much think we got it covered there. What does he say? Present, future? It's almost, he's like, things unseen. Oh, and by the way, all the stuff that I haven't included, I'm including. You know what I mean? And what does he say? All things are yours. All things are yours. And you're of the Christ consciousness, the energy that animates all things. What does he say in Colossians? He holds all things together. So when he speaks of Jesus, he does not speak of a solution to a problem that was inserted late in the game. It wasn't like God was like, oh man, they're naked and running around. What am I going to do? You need a job. Go down there. This is actually the thing that the New Testament writers seem to be addressing most clearly and bluntly, which is the Christ is not a solution to a problem kicked up at the last minute. Through him, all things were made. He holds all things together. There is an energy that surges through all of creation. The cross is not something new. It is the revelation of that which has been true all along. Jesus isn't cooked up at the last minute. Jesus the Christ isn't Jesus the last name. It's Jesus, the revelation of the divine energy surging through all of creation from the very beginning. So when your students stumble across something and think, this is life, what does that have to do with Jesus? Other than everything, you're back in the temple. Your job is to tear the temple down. Your job is to tear. Do you have anybody who comes every time there's a church meeting and there's something within you that's like, oh, that's great, they're really committed, but now you're 7 years in, and you're like, I don't think they're getting it. Anybody know what I'm talking about? They're actually too into this thing. I actually wonder if they're here because they don't have a life. Can we be honest about this? Can we just be honest about this? They're really, really into this. I don't think they need another church service. I think they need a cause in the world with real people to give themselves to, and they keep coming to church and singing songs about Jesus as a way to avoid the very real responsibility they've been given by the Jesus who says, you will do greater things than me. Are we preaching yet? The temple can become a place where people hide out from the very real calling we have to do something with this world. And so your job is in some strange way to build it and create it and to name the space and to frame it and let it be what it is, and so that they have a place to gather, to have senses heightened, but then you also at the same moment in some strange way are tearing it down. Yeah, now we're talking. You're both building it and subverting it at the same time. This is why how often what you're really saying in a lot of those sermons is you're saying, I'm so glad that we've gathered here, but this isn't the point. Anybody know what I'm talking about? But obviously, when the paycheck is tied into that, it's easy to be like, we're so glad you're gathered, this isn't the point, but we're so glad you're gathered, please come back. Because I'd love to send my kids to college. Yeah, it's just like politics, follow the money. You're building the temple and you're tearing it down. Because you want these kids to understand that the whole thing is a temple. You want to study literature. You want to study comparative religions. You want to go drill wells. You want to stand up. You want to organize for Bernie. You go do it. Because the whole thing is a temple and all things are yours. Now that's a tattoo. You get barbed wire. All things are yours. Do something with some balls. You know what I'm saying? What in the world? All things are yours. I think Paul knew exactly what he's doing. It's like you have this little petty, weird rivalry about who's right and who's wrong. Claim don't just affirm it, claim it. He's not just saying every new quantum physics discovery, go, wow, that's pretty cool. Don't just affirm it, claim it and own it, because you are of Christ and Christ is of God. Celebrate it. Lead the celebration. No way. I was at a party, and I was introduced to the man who's in charge of everything that we put in space at JPL, like one of the most famous scientists in the world. And my friend was so excited for the two of us to meet because he was like, oh, this is going to be so much fun. And the first thing he says is he says to me, I'm in my 70s. He says, I've been doing this a long time. And he says, we are going to find life on other planets. Not in my lifetime, but in yours. He says to Kristen and I. That's like one of his opening lines. Because I'm like, this is one of like the greatest living scientists. If I said his name, you'd be like, whoa. And that's like one of his opening lines, is like total woo-woo stuff, which suddenly I'm like, really? Cool. And he says, and when we do, you're a pastor, it's going to completely destroy your whole story. Because God's sending Jesus to save people. What if there's other planets? And I said, oh, no, you've completely mistaken. For me, it'll just make the story even better. It'll just make the story even better. If your faith is going to crumble if they find life on other planets, then just get a new one now. And if your faith is in trouble because the earth is older than 6,000 years, get a new one now. Just quickly, like literally, go out to the car in the glove compartment, take it out, put it on, wear the shirt, and if your students aren't handed a joyous, limber, open, celebratory understanding of this beautiful, strange, mysterious, exotic world, they're in trouble. They're in trouble.